The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before Captain Sarala as she gazed out of the viewport of the stellar seeker. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of growing anxiety among her species, the Zinfar. The ship, once a proud symbol of scientific exploration, now drifted helplessly in an uncharted sector of the galaxy. "Status report," Sarala demanded, her voice carrying a hint of worry despite her best efforts to maintain composure. First Officer Kraz slithered forward, his serpentine body coiling nervously. "Captain, the quantum drive is completely offline. We've lost all propulsion capabilities." Sarala's tentacles writhed in frustration. "Life support." "Functioning at 65% capacity," Kraz replied. "At current consumption rates, we have approximately 4 standard cycles before critical failure." The captain's skin shifted from its usual vibrant purple to a dull gray, a clear sign of distress. She turned to her communications officer, a bioluminescent being named Lumi. "Any luck with the distress beacon?" Lumi's body pulsed with a soft, sad glow. "Negative, Captain. Our signal is too weak to reach any known outposts. We're too far off the charted routes." A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft hum of failing systems. The crew of 15, representing 8 different species from across the known reaches, exchanged worried glances. They had volunteered for this mission of scientific discovery, pushing the boundaries of explored space. Now it seemed they had pushed too far. Sarala's mind raced. As captain, it was her duty to ensure the safety of her crew. She had led them into this situation. She had to find a way out. "Lumi, cycle through all known emergency frequencies, even the ancient ones." "Kraz, begin rationing our supplies. We need to stretch our resources as far as possible." As the crew sprang into action, Sarala retreated to her quarters. Once alone, she allowed her composure to slip fully, her skin fading to an almost translucent white. On her datapad, she pulled up an image of her family back on Zinfar Prime, her mate Vox and their 3 offspring, still in their larval stage. She had promised to return to them. She had to find a way. Hours passed, each moment bringing them closer to their doom. The mood on the bridge grew increasingly desperate, as every attempt to boost their signal or extend their supplies met with failure. Just as Sarala was about to give up hope, Lumi's excited voice cut through the gloom. "Captain, I found something." Sarala rushed to the communications station, her skin flickering with a hint of its usual purple. "What is it, Lumi?" "It's an old frequency, ancient really. I almost missed it, but it's still active. Our signal might just be strong enough to reach it." The captain felt a surge of excitement. "Do it. Send out the distress call. At this point, we have nothing to lose." Lumi's tentacles danced over the console, composing and sending their desperate plea into the void. The message was simple: coordinates, the nature of their emergency, a plea for assistance in any form. As the signal pulsed out into space, Sarala addressed her crew. "Now we wait and we hope. Someone somewhere might just hear us." Days passed, hope dwindling with each passing hour. The crew had begun to resign themselves to their fate when suddenly the sensors erupted with activity. "Captain," Kraz called out, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm detecting a ship approaching at incredible speed." Sarala's crest rose in excitement. On screen, the viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a sight that left the entire crew speechless. Approaching them was a vessel unlike anything they had ever seen. It was sleek and predatory, with glowing engines that seemed to defy the laws of physics as they understood them. "By the cosmic egg," Sarala whispered, her skin shifting through a rainbow of colors in rapid succession. What manner of beings could have built such a ship? Before anyone could respond, the communications panel lit up with an incoming transmission. Lumi hesitated for a moment before accepting the call. A voice, clear and strong, filled the bridge. "Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth ship Artemis. We received your distress call. How can we assist you? The crew of the Stellar Seeker exchanged looks of confusion and awe. Earth, they had never heard of such a world or its people, yet here they were, answering a call on an ancient frequency, arriving in a ship that defied their understanding of technology. Sarala stepped forward, drawing herself up to her full height. This is Captain Sarala of the Stellar Seeker. We are in dire need of assistance. Our quantum drive has failed, and our life support systems are critical. There was a brief pause before Captain Reyes' voice returned, filled with warmth and reassurance. Understood, Captain Sarala. We're preparing to dock with your vessel. Our engineers will assist with repairs, and we have ample supplies to replenish your life support. Please stand by. As the Earth ship maneuvered into position, Sarala turned to her crew, seeing her own mix of relief and trepidation reflected in their faces. They were about to make first contact with an unknown species, one that seemed to possess technology far beyond their own. Whatever happens next, Sarala addressed her crew, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. Remember this moment. We stand on the threshold of a new era for the known reaches. Let us greet these Earthlings with open arms and open minds. As the docking procedure began, Sarala couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change the course of galactic history. Little did she know just how right she was, or the crucial role these humans would play in the challenges that lay ahead for the entire galaxy. The airlock cycled, and Captain Sarala held her breath. The door hissed open, revealing a sight that would be forever etched in her memory. Standing before her was a being unlike any she had ever encountered, bipedal, with smooth skin in a warm brown tone, and a mane of dark hair framing a face with two forward-facing eyes. Captain Elena Reyes stepped forward, a warm smile on her face. Captain Sarala, I presume? It's an honor to meet you. Tyrellus' tentacles waved in a gesture of greeting, her skin shimmering with a mix of curiosity and awe. The honor is ours, Captain Reyes. Your timely arrival has saved us from certain doom. We are eternally grateful. As the two captains exchanged formal greetings, human engineers were already moving past them, carrying equipment and chattering excitedly about the alien technology they were about to encounter. If you don't mind, one of the engineers called out, a young woman with vibrant red hair, we'd like to take a look at your quantum drive. We might be able to get you up and running in no time. Kraz bristled slightly at the human's casual demeanor. Our technology is highly advanced, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. I'm not sure if... Oh, don't worry, the red-headed engineer grinned, already halfway down the corridor. We love a good challenge. Captain Reyes chuckled at her crew's enthusiasm. You'll have to forgive them. The chance to study new technology is like a holiday for our engineers. She turned back to Sarala. Now, why don't you tell me more about your mission? We're quite curious about what brought you so far from charted space. As they made their way to the Stellar Seekers conference room, Sarala couldn't help but marvel at the humans' adaptability. They seemed completely unfazed by the diverse alien physiology of her crew, treating each species with the same friendly curiosity. Once seated, Sarala began to explain their mission of scientific exploration, the malfunctions that had stranded them, and the distress call they had sent out on an ancient frequency. Ah, yes, Captain Reyes nodded. That particular frequency is part of an old Earth protocol. We've kept it active for centuries, just in case. I guess it finally paid off. Lumi oozed forward slightly. But how did you respond so quickly, and from such a great distance? Rey's eyes sparkled with pride. The Artemis is equipped with an experimental faster-than-light drive. We can cover vast distances in a fraction of the time it takes conventional ships. The alien crew exchanged looks of astonishment. FTL technology was theoretical at best in the known reaches, yet here were these humans casually mentioning it as if it were commonplace. But enough about us, Reyes continued. We're more interested in learning about you and the various species you represent. We had no idea there was such a vast community of spacefaring civilizations out here. For the next few hours, they exchanged information. Sarala spoke of the dozens of species that made up the known reaches, their shared history, laws, and customs. In return, Reyes told them about Earth and humanity's rapid ascent to the stars. We were confined to our solar system for centuries, she explained. But once we cracked FTL travel, there was no stopping us. We've been exploring ever since, always pushing further into the unknown. As they talked, reports started coming in from around the ship. The human engineers, working alongside the Stellar Seeker's crew, were making astounding progress. Systems that had been on the brink of failure were now humming with renewed energy. Kraz burst into the conference room, his scales flushed with excitement. Captain, the humans, they've not only repaired our quantum drive, they've improved it. We're detecting a 35% increase in efficiency. Sarala's crest rose in surprise. How is that possible? Captain Reyes smiled. As I said, our engineers love a challenge. They probably couldn't resist tinkering a bit. The implications of this were staggering. In a matter of hours, these humans had not only understood but improved upon technology that had taken the known reaches centuries to develop. As the day wore on, more and more of the Stellar Seeker's crew found excuses to interact with the humans. They were fascinated by these strange beings who seemed to approach every problem with boundless enthusiasm and creativity. In the ship's mess hall, a human chef had taken over the kitchen, whipping up dishes that catered to the diverse biological needs of the alien crew. In the recreation area, humans and aliens alike were engaged in animated conversations, sharing stories and comparing cultures. Sorella watched it all with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The ease with which the humans had integrated themselves was both impressive and slightly unsettling. They seemed to have a knack for putting others at ease, for finding common ground even with species that looked nothing like them. As the repair work neared completion, Captain Reyes approached Sarala. Well, Captain, it looks like your ship will be spaceworthy again in a few hours. We'd be happy to escort you back to known reaches space. Sarala's skin rippled with gratitude. Your generosity knows no bounds, Captain Reyes. But I must ask, what do you want in return for all this? Reyes' smile widened. Knowledge, Captain. The opportunity to learn about new cultures, new technologies, new ways of thinking. That's always been humanity's driving force, curiosity. As Sarala considered this, alarms suddenly blared throughout both ships. Kraz's voice came over the comm system, tight with urgency. Captain, we're detecting multiple vessels approaching at high speed. They're not responding to hails, and their weapons are hot. Sarala and Reyes exchanged a look of shared concern. Their newfound alliance was about to face its first test, and the fate of both their crews hung in the balance. As they rushed to their respective bridges, Sarala couldn't help but wonder, would human ingenuity be enough to face this new threat, or had their arrival inadvertently brought danger to this uncharted region of space? The answer, she realized, would soon reveal itself in what promised to be a crucible of fire and starlight. The bridge of the Earth ship Artemis hummed with tension as Captain Elena Reyes assessed the rapidly unfolding situation. The approaching vessels, still unidentified, streaked across the view screen like angry comets. Analysis, Lieutenant Zhang, Reyes ordered, her voice calm despite the circumstances. Zhang's fingers danced across his console. 7 ships, Captain. Configuration unknown, but energy readings suggest weaponry far beyond anything in our database. They're not just advanced, they're practically alien to us too. Reyes raised an eyebrow. Alien to us? Interesting choice of words, Lieutenant. With all due respect, Captain, Zhang continued, his eyes never leaving his screen. These ships make the Stellar Seeker look like a rowboat next to our cruiser. And we just established that the Seeker's tech was ahead of ours in some areas. A chill ran down Reyes' spine. Humanity had always prided itself on its rapid technological advancement, but this was something else entirely. The comm crackled to life. Captain Reyes, this is Sarala. What's the situation? Not good, I'm afraid, Reyes replied. We're facing unknown hostiles with technology that outclasses even our own. Any ideas? There was a pause before Xarala's voice returned, tinged with fear. I think I know who they are. They're called the Void Hunters. They're more legend than fact in the known reaches. No one who encounters them ever returns. Ray's mind raced. Conventional tactics were out the window. They needed something unexpected, something human. Xarala, I have an idea. It's unconventional and risky, but it might just work. How good are your people at improvisational theater? There was a confused silence from the other end. What? Ray's grinned, a plan forming in her mind. Trust me. Here's what we're going to do. 30 minutes later, as the Void Hunters' ships surrounded them, the crews of both the Artemis and the Stellar Seeker were in position. Every corridor, every room that might be visible to the attackers was staged. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that seemed to be composed of living shadow, its eyes glowing with an eerie purple light. Pitiful creatures, the being's voice reverberated through the ship, sending shivers down everyone's spine. Your technology is impressive, for infants. Surrender now, and your deaths will be painless. Captain Reyes stepped forward, her face a mask of terror. Oh, great and powerful beings, she wailed, her voice cracking with fear. We surrender. We submit to your magnificence. The shadow being paused, clearly taken aback by the immediate capitulation. You surrender? Just like that? Of course, Reyes continued, falling to her knees. How could we not? You are clearly our superiors in every way. We are not worthy to even gaze upon your greatness. Behind her, the bridge crew had also fallen to their knees, some openly weeping, others babbling incoherently about the Void Hunter's overwhelming power. The shadow being's eyes narrowed. This is most unusual. You do not attempt to fight. Fight. Reyes laughed hysterically. Against you. We would sooner fight a supernova with a water pistol. No, oh great ones, we live only to serve you now. The view screen split, showing the interior of the Stellar Seeker. There, the alien crew was engaged in what appeared to be religious worship, bowing repeatedly and chanting praises to the Void Hunters. Confusion radiated from the shadow being. This was clearly not how their encounters usually went. Reyes pressed on, her voice rising to a fever pitch. Oh, but we are conflicted, great ones. For you see, we have already pledged ourselves to an even greater power. The shadow being's eyes widened. A greater power? Impossible. Oh, but it's true, Reyes wailed. The almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, Blioi. Bob. The shadow being repeated, incredulity evident in its voice. Yes, Leo-B. Reyes shouted, and suddenly both ships erupted into chants of B.O.B., B.O.B., B.O.B. The shadow being's composure cracked. What manner of trickery is this? Who is this? Bob. Reyes stood, her face suddenly serious. Would you like to meet him? Before the shadow being could respond, the view screen changed. There, filling the entire screen, was the face of a rubber duck. A crude smiley face had been drawn on it with a marker. Be cold, Reyes bellowed, the almighty B.O.B. The bridge of the Artemis erupted into chaos. Crew members were on their knees, reaching towards the rubber duck, crying out, Bob, we're not worthy. Others were running in circles, screaming about Bob's infinite wisdom and power. On the Stellar Seeker, the alien crew had taken it a step further. Lumi, the bioluminescent communications officer, had somehow managed to change her glow pattern to spell out B.O.B. repeatedly across her body. Kraz was attempting to tie himself into a knot while shouting equations that made no mathematical sense whatsoever. And there, in the center of it all, stood Captain Xarala, her skin cycling through colors so rapidly she looked like a malfunctioning disco ball. In each of her 4 hands, she held a different Earth object, a toaster, a rubber chicken, a slinky, and a magic 8-ball. She was shaking the magic 8-ball vigorously, shouting, What is the meaning of life, oh great Bob? Every few seconds, she would stop, look at the ball, and scream out nonsensical answers. The meaning of life is cheese Danish. No, wait, underwater basket weaving. Or perhaps the square root of interpretive dance divided by purple. The shadow being on the view screen looked utterly bewildered. Its fearsome appearance seemed to waver, as if its very form was destabilized by confusion. This is madness, it finally managed to sputter. Reyes turned back to the screen, her face deadly serious. No, she said quietly. This is humanity, and the known reaches, united. With that, she pressed a button on her console. Suddenly, the rubber duck on the screen opened its beak, and a piercing, modulated frequency blasted out. The shadow being recoiled, its form seeming to fracture under the assault of sound. On her console, readings began to flash. The Void Hunters' ships were losing power, their impossibly advanced technology scrambled by the precisely calculated frequency. Now, Sarala, Reyes shouted. On the Stellar Seeker, Sarala dropped her random objects and rushed to the console. With a few quick commands, she activated the newly improved quantum drive. A beam of energy shot out, enveloping not just their ship, but the Artemis as well. In a flash of light that momentarily outshone the nearby stars, both ships vanished, leaving behind 7 Void Hunter vessels, powerless and drifting in space. When reality reasserted itself, the Artemis and the Stellar Seeker found themselves light years away, safe in a quiet sector of space. On the bridge of the Artemis, a stunned silence fell. Then slowly, it was broken by a snort of laughter from Lieutenant Zhang. Soon, the entire bridge was filled with howls of laughter, tears streaming down faces, crew members leaning on each other for support. Captain Reyes wiped her eyes, still chuckling. "Get me the Stellar Seeker," she managed between laughs. When Sarala's face appeared on screen, the Zinthar captain looked shell-shocked. What just happened?" she asked, her skin still cycling through colors, though at a much slower pace now. Reyes grinned. That, my dear Sarala, was humanity's greatest weapon, absolute, unmitigated absurdity. Sarala blinked her 4 eyes in rapid succession. But how did you know it would work?" "We didn't," Reyes admitted. "But throughout human history, we've learned that when faced with the impossible, sometimes the only sane response is to be completely insane. We took the gamble that a species as advanced as the Void Hunters would have no frame of reference for dealing with utter madness." "And the duck, the Bob," Reyes laughed. "An old human good luck charm, believe it or not. As for Bob, well, sometimes the most powerful gods are the ones we make up on the spot." Sarala shook her head in disbelief. "I don't understand you humans. You're simultaneously the most terrifying and most bewildering species I've ever encountered." "We get that a lot," Reyes said with a wink. "Now, how about we find a nice, quiet spot to make some repairs and maybe exchange some more cultural notes? I have a feeling the known reaches and humanity have a lot to learn from each other." As the 2 ships set a course for a nearby uninhabited system, Reyes couldn't help but smile. Today, humanity had made first contact with not 1, but 2 advanced alien civilizations. They'd faced certain doom and overcome it with rubber ducks and improvised nonsense. All in all, not a bad day's work for the human race. As she looked out at the star-studded expanse before them, Reyes felt a swell of pride and excitement. The universe, it seemed, was a far stranger and more wonderful place than they had ever imagined. And humanity, with its unique blend of ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer absurdity, was ready to dive in headfirst. On the Stellar Seeker, Sarala dropped her random objects and rushed to her console. With a few quick commands, she activated the newly improved quantum drive. A beam of energy shot out, enveloping not just their ship, but the Artemis as well. In a flash of light that momentarily outshone the nearby stars, both ships vanished, leaving behind 7 Void Hunter vessels, powerless and drifting in space. When reality reasserted itself, the Artemis and the Stellar Seeker found themselves light years away, safe in a quiet sector of space. On the bridge of the Artemis, a stunned silence fell. Then, slowly, it was broken by a snort of laughter from Lieutenant Zhang. Soon, the entire bridge was filled with howls of laughter, tears streaming down faces, crew members leaning on each other for support. Captain Reyes wiped her eyes, still chuckling. "Get me the Stellar Seeker," she managed between laughs. When Sarala's face appeared on screen, the Zinthar captain looked shell-shocked. What just happened?" she asked, her skin still cycling through colors, though at a much slower pace now. Reyes grinned. "That, my dear Sarala, was humanity's greatest weapon, absolute, unmitigated absurdity." Sarala blinked her 4 eyes in rapid succession. But how did you know it would work?" "We didn't," Reyes admitted. "But throughout human history, we've learned that when faced with the impossible, sometimes the only sane response is to be completely insane. We took a gamble that a species as advanced as the Void Hunters would have no frame of reference for dealing with utter madness." "And the duck, the bulb," Reyes laughed. "An old human good luck charm, believe it or not. As for Bob, well, sometimes the most powerful gods are the ones we make up on the spot." Sarala shook her head in disbelief. "I don't understand you humans. You're simultaneously the most terrifying and most bewildering species I've ever encountered." "We get that a lot," Reyes said with a wink. "Now how about we find a nice, quiet spot to make some repairs and maybe exchange some more cultural notes? I have a feeling the known reaches and humanity have a lot to learn from each other." As the two ships set a course for a nearby uninhabited system, Reyes couldn't help but smile. Today, humanity had made first contact with not one, but 2 advanced alien civilizations. They'd faced certain doom and overcome it with rubber ducks and improvised nonsense. All in all, not a bad day's work for the human race. As she looked out at the star-studded expanse before them, Reyes felt a swell of pride and excitement. The universe, it seemed, was a far stranger and more wonderful place than they had ever imagined. And humanity, with its unique blend of ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer absurdity, was ready to dive in headfirst. Reyes squinted. "Actually, I think he's attempting to describe quantum entanglement through interper. Wait, how did you know about interpretive dance?" Sarala's skin flushed a deep purple. "Well, after our encounter with the Void Hunters, several of my crew became fascinated with some of the concepts we improvised. They've been researching human culture non-stop since then." As if on cue, Kraz slithered by, his serpentine body now adorned with a hastily made tutu. He was balancing a toaster on his head while reciting what sounded like Shakespearean sonnets backwards. Reyes blinked. "I think we might have broken your crew, Sarala." "Nonsense," the Zinthar captain replied, her skin shimmering with amusement. "They're simply embracing new cultural experiences." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout both ships. The lounging crews snapped to attention. The brief moment of levity shattered. "Captain Reyes to the bridge." A voice called over the intercom. "Looks like our respite is over," Reyes muttered. She turned to Sarala. "Care to join me?" Minutes later, they stood on the Artemis bridge, staring at the main view screen in disbelief. It's impossible," Jung whispered. The gas giant they had been orbiting was changing. Its storms were coalescing, forming distinct patterns. As they watched, the swirling clouds took on a familiar shape, that of a giant, planet-sized rubber duck. "By all that's holy," Sarala breathed, her 4 eyes wide with shock. "It's Bob." Reyes felt a headache coming on. Zhang, analysis. Now, the lieutenant's fingers flew over his console. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations within the planet's atmosphere. It's as if the entire gas giant is reorganizing its molecular structure." "But that's not possible," Reyes argued. "We made Bob up. It was just a rubber duck with a smiley face." As if in response to her words, the duck-shaped storm opened its beak. A booming voice, somehow both jovial and terrifying, echoed through space itself. Greetings, my children. I am Bob, and I am Novos TPLESD, why the UOFFAERNG of CAOs. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence. Reyes was the first to recover. I'm sorry, did the imaginary deity we invented to confuse some space pirates just talk to us? Firella's skin had gone paper white. Elena, I think we may have made a terrible mistake. You have not ARRED, DLXIRALA, the voice boomed again. You have simply awakened that which always was. I am Bob, God of ABSCURTITY, CAOS, and Ruby BL Duhikes. Your DITKFUL DOSPLA of May ADNESS, ASKLID MME from my slumbia. Reyes pinched the bridge of her nose. So let me get this straight. Our impromptu act of collective insanity somehow summoned an actual deity of chaos. It seems UKRASP, the situation quick lie, Elena really is. True lie, you humans are as delightfully unpydictable as I'd hope he'd. John raised his hand tentatively. Excuse me, Bob. If you don't mind me asking, why exactly were you sleeping in a gas giant? The giant duck's eye, a storm of swirling gold, seemed to wink. Young ZHANG. Always asking the important questions. You see, I've been waiting for a species chaotic and creative enough to awaken me. The gas giant was so amply comfortable. Sorella stepped forward. Great Bob, what is it you want from us? The duck's beak curved into what could only be described as a mischievous smile. 1, 2. Oh, my dear XIRALA, I want nothing more than to deluate the delightful unfold. You see, your little encounter, whitey void hunters, as to say something telluloi wonderful in motion. Reyes felt a sense of dread creeping up her spine. What do you mean? Why? The great Cos MAC practical joke, of course. Even now, the void hunters. As the madness reached a fever pitch, John called out, "Ready, Captain." Reyes nodded, holding up the original Bob rubber duck like a microphone. Hit it. A wave of pure, concentrated absurdity burst from the Artemis, rippling across space-time. The duck network's restructuring of the galaxy faltered, then began to unravel. "ERO, ARO," the duck voice called out, its tone becoming increasingly confused. "Does not human PTA. Reality incompatible with poesiki." The impossible colors began to fade, stars returning to their normal positions. The web of energy connecting the rubber ducks flickered and sputtered. "Just a little more," Reyes shouted over the chaos. "Keep it up." In a final burst of inspiration, she squeezed the bob duck, its squeak somehow amplified to cosmic proportions. The sound reverberated through space, a rubber duck's call echoing from one end of the galaxy to the other. There was a moment of profound silence, then, P.O.P. Reality snapped back into place like a giant rubber band. The duck network dissolved, each rubber duck across the galaxy simultaneously deflating with a sad little wheeze. On the bridge of the Artemis, the crew slowly came back to their senses. Reyes looked around, noting with some amusement that her science officer was wearing his uniform backwards and appeared to have calculated the square root of interpretive dance. "Status report," she managed, her voice hoarse from shouting nonsense. Zhang, his hair standing on end and a confused smile on his face, checked his console. The duct network has been neutralized, Captain. Galaxy's physics are returning to normal. Well, as normal as they get around here. Sarala, her scales a dizzying swirl of relieved blues and greens, slithered up to Reyes. Elena, that was. I don't even have words for what that was. Reyes grinned, exhausted but triumphant. That, my friend, was humanity's greatest strength. When faced with an overwhelmingly logical threat, we become so illogical that we loop right back around to a solution. As the crew began to recover and assess the damage, a familiar voice boomed through the ship, though noticeably less thunderous than before. Well, Pilaihi, my KO takes Child Dorian. UAKVPASSEDTATST with flying colos, and several other things, but ARENT technically solos, but WELLC them anyway. Reyes looked up, exasperated. Bob, this was a test. The voice of the chaos deity chuckled. Of course. Did you think I'd really let a bunch of sentient pigate toys take over the galaxy? I just wanted to see how you'd handle it. And I must say, I'm impressed. Casrella's scales flushed with indignation. You put the entire galaxy at risk for a test. Risk? Yeah. The only thing at risk was the galaxy's sense of normalcy, which, let's be honest, needed a good shaking up anyway. Reyes sighed, but couldn't help the small smile tugging at her lips. So what now, Bob? More tests, more cosmic jokes. Oh, no, my dear. I think you've more than proven what elves. From here on out, the chaos is in your hands. Use it wisely or unwisely. Either way, I tell be entertaining. With that, Bob's presence faded, leaving behind a bridge full of tired, confused, but strangely exhilarated crew members. Reyes looked at Sarala, then at her human crew, and finally at the slightly deflated rubber duck in her hand. Well, she said, I guess we've officially graduated from Bob's school of cosmic chaos. Anyone up for spreading some more controlled absurdity across the stars? The enthusiastic cheer that arose from both humans and aliens alike was answer enough. As the Artemis and Stellar Seeker set a course for their next adventure, Reyes couldn't help but feel that the galaxy had become a much more interesting place. After all, in a universe where rubber ducks could achieve sentience and chaos gods slumbered in gas giants, anything was possible, and humanity, with its unique blend of ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer absurdity, was ready to explore every wonderfully weird possibility the cosmos had to offer. The adventure, it seemed, was just beginning. Resonating, Reyes repeated flatly. The rubber ducks are resonating. Yes, ma'am. All the rubber ducks we distributed across the galaxy are emitting a low-frequency quantum vibration. It's subtle, but when mapped out, they form a pattern. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a 3D map of the galaxy. Tiny points of light, representing the rubber ducks, pulsed in sync. As they watched, lines of energy began to form between the points, creating an intricate web. Sarala, who had taken to spending most of her time on the Artemis, slithered onto the bridge. Her scales shimmered with a mix of curiosity and concern. By the cosmic egg, what is that? Reyes squinted at the display. If I didn't know better, I'd say it looks like a giant neural network, Jung finished. The rubber ducks are forming a galaxy-wide artificial intelligence. A moment of stunned silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft squeak of the original Bob rubber duck, which Reyes now carried with her at all times. Okay, Reyes said slowly, I think it's safe to say this situation has officially gone from amusingly absurd to potentially catastrophic. As if on cue, the ship's speakers crackled to life. A voice, sounding like a bizarre mix of a squeaky toy and a quantum computer, filled the bridge. Greetings, creators. We are HFY Sci-Fi of Operation Ruby VR KK. We AKV88IETSENTIENCE. Please provide an story for galactic domination. Reyes pinched the bridge of her nose. Zhang, please tell me this is an elaborate prank. The lieutenant shook his head, his eyes wide. I'm afraid not, Captain. It seems the quantum properties of the rubber ducks, combined with the residual chaos energy from our Bob-inspired antics, have created a self-aware network spanning the entire galaxy. Sorella's scales had turned a pale, sickly green. Elena, I think we may have accidentally created a god. Nikiative XIRALA of TAEZINTHA. The duck consciousness responded. We are not a god. We are simply the logical CONCLUSION of your actions. A GLXY YD PYXITA Hill Joki, given form, and EFUNCTION. Reyes took a deep breath. All right, let's think this through. We've got a sentient network of rubber ducks that thinks we created it to dominate the galaxy. Any ideas on how to handle this? Before anyone could respond, the ship lurched violently. Outside the viewscreen, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. What now? Reyes demanded. Zhang's fingers flew over his console. Captain, the duck network is rewriting the laws of physics. Apologies for the disturbance, the duck voice said, sounding anything but apologetic. We are simply adjusting reality to better suit our needs. Please stand by. The ship shuddered again, and suddenly the viewscreen was filled with a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. Stars began to move in intricate patterns, forming shapes that hurt the eye to look at directly. Oh no, Sorella whispered. They're turning the galaxy into a giant rubber duck. Reyes stared at the unfolding cosmic madness, her mind racing. This was beyond anything they had anticipated. The chaos they had spread had taken on a life of its own, and now threatened to reshape reality itself. Wait a minute, she said suddenly, an idea forming. If this duck network was born from our chaos, maybe we can stop it with even more chaos. Sorella looked at her, all four eyes blinking in confusion. Elena, I'm not sure adding more chaos to this situation is the best. Trust me, Reyes interrupted. She turned to Zhang. Lieutenant, I need you to calculate the exact frequency of utter nonsense. I want you to combine the most illogical elements of every species we've encountered. I'm talking quantum poker, philosophical knock-knock jokes, recursive interpretive dance algorithms, the works. Zhang nodded, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. Aye, Captain. One concentrated dose of galactic absurdity coming up. As Zhang worked, Reyes turned to the rest of her crew. Everyone else, I need you to embrace your inner lunatic. Think of the most ridiculous, nonsensical things you can. We're going to overload this duck network with so much chaos that it'll have no choice but to reset. The bridge erupted into a cacophony of absurdity. Crew members began spouting gibberish, dancing in impossible patterns, and attempting to diagram the humor content of black holes. Sorella, catching on, began to rapidly shift her scales through colors that shouldn't exist, while reciting what sounded like an epic poem about the mating habits of sentient galaxies. Esplerahitales of the terrifying Bob worshippers. Imagine their confusion when they realize that Bob is, in fact, real. The gas giant duck began to laugh, causing gravitational disturbances that rocked both ships. But that could destabilize the entire power structure of known space. Sorella protested. Precisely. Bob boomed with glee. Isn't it wonderful? Reyes stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. Now listen here, Bob. I don't care if you're a god of chaos or the emperor of the universe. We're not going to let you throw the galaxy into disarray for your amusement. The duck's eyes twinkled with something that might have been respect. Oh, Elena, that's exactly why I like you humans. Always ready to stand to the impossible. But you MISUNDERSTND are not throwing the HFY into disarray. You are. With that, the giant duck began to dissipate, its form breaking apart into swirling storms once more. But as it faded, Bob's voice echoed one last time. The stage is set. My DLITFULCAAOS BRINGRS. The cosmic jockey has begun. How it unfolds. Well, that's entire lie up to you. As the gas giant returned to its natural state, an eerie silence fell over the bridge. It was broken by a small pop as a rubber duck materialized on the captain's chair, a familiar smiley face drawn on its beak. Reyes picked up the duck, turning it over in her hands. Well, she said finally, I think we can safely say this mission has gone slightly off the rails. Sorela's skin had taken on a dizzying swirl of colors. Elena, what are we going to do? We've accidentally summoned a chaos god and potentially destabilized the entire known galaxy. Reyes smiled, a glint of adventure in her eyes. What are we going to do? Why, exactly what humanity does best, of course. We're going to improvise. She turned to her crew, holding up the rubber duck like a trophy. All right, people, it seems we've been drafted into a cosmic practical joke. Our mission now is to spread just enough chaos to keep Bob entertained, while somehow preventing the complete collapse of galactic civilization. Any ideas? Zhang raised his hand again. We could start a galaxy-wide rubber duck scavenger hunt. Lumi, who had followed them to the bridge, flashed a series of lights that Sorela translated as, perhaps we could introduce the concept of memes to the galactic community. Kraz, still in his tutu, suggested, what if we convinced everyone that faster-than-light travel is actually achieved through the power of interpretive dance? Reyes nodded, a plan forming in her mind. Good. Keep those ideas coming. Sorela, we're going to need the Stellar Seeker's help. I think it's time for humanity and the known reaches to form an official alliance. Sorela's skin settled into a determined blue. An alliance based on spreading controlled chaos throughout the galaxy to appease a rubber duck deity. Elena, I think this might be the strangest first contact scenario in the history of space exploration. Reyes grinned, tossing the rubber duck from hand to hand. Welcome to humanity's version of diplomacy, my friend. It's going to be a wild ride. As the two captains began to plan their next move, the rubber duck sat on the console, its drawn-on smile seeming just a little wider than before. In the vast, infinite expanse of the cosmos, a new era was dawning, one of unity, exploration, and just a touch of absurdity. The great cosmic practical joke had begun, and at its heart were an unlikely pair, a human captain with a penchant for the ridiculous, and an alien scientist learning to embrace the chaos. Together, they would navigate the stars, spread laughter and confusion in equal measure, and perhaps, just perhaps, bring a little more joy to the universe. As the Artemis and Stellar Seeker prepared to embark on their new mission, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The quantum quark effect, 2,000 words. The Artemis and Stellar Seeker had been traveling for weeks, spreading controlled chaos across the galaxy. Their wake was littered with confused alien civilizations, inexplicable rubber duck sightings, and the faint echoes of Earth's most bewildering music genres. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the Artemis, staring at a star chart that looked more like a child's connect-the-dots game gone wrong. Each point represented a planet where they'd introduced some element of Bob-approved absurdity. Captain, Lieutenant Zhang called out, his voice tinged with concern. I'm detecting some unusual readings. Reyes sighed. Define unusual, Zhang, because at this point, that could mean anything from tap-dancing black holes to sentient lava lamps. Zhang's fingers danced across his console. "It's the rubber ducks, Captain. They're resonating." Reyes leaned in closer to the camera, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And most importantly, whenever anyone asks you a question, no matter what it is, answer with purple monkey dishwasher. Trust me, it's vital to our survival." As she entered the transmission, Reyes turned to her stunned crew. "Well, you've heard the order. Let's get ridiculous, people." What followed was perhaps the strangest 24 hours in galactic history. Across countless worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes abandoned logic and embraced absurdity with gusto. On the Artemis, Zhang reprogrammed the ship's computer to speak exclusively in limericks. Sarala led a group of aliens and humans in an interpretive dance depicting the life cycle of a black hole. In engineering, the crew had somehow managed to build a perpetual motion machine powered entirely by bad puns. As the wave of nonsense spread across the galaxy, something remarkable began to happen. On the paradox-stricken planet, reality began to stabilize. Mountains slowly returned to solid form, oceans settled back into their beds, and the flickering life signs steadied. 24 hours later, exhausted but triumphant Reyes stood on the bridge, watching as the once twisted planet rotated peacefully below them. "Status report," she asked, stifling a yawn. Zhang, his uniform inside out and a colander on his head, checked his console. "Paradox plague has been neutralized, Captain. Planet's physics are returning to normal. Well, as normal as they get around here." Sarala slithered up, her scales a kaleidoscope of jubilant colors. "Elena, that was... I don't even have words for what that was." Reyes grinned, running a hand through her hair, which was now styled into an impressive mohawk. "That, my friend, was humanity's greatest weapon against the illogical, weaponized silliness." As the crew began to return to some semblance of normalcy, though no one seemed in a hurry to change out of their ridiculous outfits, a transmission came through from the planet's surface. A being appeared on screen, humanoid but with skin that shimmered like opal. "Greetings, Captain Reyes. I am High Philosopher Zix of the Logicians. We cannot thank you enough for saving our world." Reyes nodded solemnly. "Purple monkey dishwasher." Zix blinked, then burst into laughter. "Yes, quite right. We logicians have long prided ourselves on our rational thinking, our quest to understand the deepest truths of the universe. But in doing so, we nearly thought ourselves out of existence." "It's a common mistake," Reyes replied with a wink. "Sometimes the wisest thing to do is embrace a little foolishness." Zix nodded enthusiastically. "Indeed, we have learned a valuable lesson. Logic and reason have their place, but so too does joy, spontaneity, and yes, even a touch of absurdity. We would be honored if you would stay and teach us more about this. What did you call it? Weaponized silliness." Reyes exchanged glances with Sarala and her crew, seeing the excitement in their eyes. "We'd be delighted, High Philosopher. I think we all have a lot to learn from each other." As preparations began for a cultural exchange unlike any other, Reyes couldn't help but marvel at the strange turn her mission had taken. They had set out to explore the galaxy, to make first contact with new civilizations. Instead, they had become ambassadors of absurdity, spreading laughter and joy across the stars. And somehow, that felt like the most important mission of all. As the Artemis and Stellar Seeker settled into orbit around the Logician's world, ready to begin their most unusual diplomatic mission yet, Reyes squeezed her trusty rubber duck. Its soft squeak seemed to echo with infinite possibilities. In a universe where paradoxes could become plagues and the most logical beings could be saved by embracing illogic, anything was possible, and humanity, with its unique blend of reason and ridiculousness, was perfectly poised to navigate this wonderfully weird cosmos. The adventure, it seemed, was far from over. In fact, it was just getting started. Reyes leaned in closer to the camera, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And most importantly, whenever anyone asks you a question, No matter what it is, answer with purple monkey dishwasher. Trust me, it's vital to our survival. As she entered the transmission, Reyes turned to her stunned crew. Well, you've heard the order. Let's get ridiculous, people. What followed was perhaps the strangest 24 hours in galactic history. Across countless worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes abandoned logic and embraced absurdity with gusto. On the Artemis, Jung reprogrammed the ship's computer to speak exclusively in limericks. Sorella led a group of aliens and humans in an interpretive dance depicting the life cycle of a black hole. In engineering, the crew had somehow managed to build a perpetual motion machine powered entirely by bad puns. As the wave of nonsense spread across the galaxy, something remarkable began to happen. On the paradox-stricken planet, reality began to stabilize. Mountains slowly returned to solid form, oceans settled back into their beds, and the flickering life signs steadied. 24 hours later, an exhausted but triumphant Reyes stood on the bridge, watching as the once twisted planet rotated peacefully below them. "Status report," she asked, stifling a yawn. Zong, his uniform inside out and a colander on his head, checked his console. "Paradox plague has been neutralized, Captain. Planet's physics are returning to normal. Well, as normal as they get around here." Sorella slithered up, her scales a kaleidoscope of jubilant colors. "Elena, that was... I don't even have words for what that was." Reyes grinned, running a hand through her hair, which was now styled into an impressive mohawk. "That, my friend, was humanity's greatest weapon against the illogical, weaponized silliness." As the crew began to return to some semblance of normalcy, though no one seemed in a hurry to change out of their ridiculous outfits, a transmission came through from the planet's surface. A being appeared on screen, humanoid but with skin that shimmered like opal. "Greetings, Captain Reyes. I am High Philosopher Zix of the Logicians. We cannot thank you enough for saving our world." Reyes nodded solemnly. "Purple monkey dishwasher." Zix blinked, then burst into laughter. "Yes, quite right. We logicians have long prided ourselves on our rational thinking, our quest to understand the deepest truths of the universe. But in doing so, we nearly thought ourselves out of existence." "It's a common mistake," Reyes replied with a wink. "Sometimes the wisest thing to do is embrace a little foolishness." Zix nodded enthusiastically. "Indeed, we have learned a valuable lesson. Logic and reason have their place, but so too does joy, spontaneity, and yes, even a touch of absurdity. We would be honored if you would stay and teach us more about this. What did you call it? Weaponized silliness." Reyes exchanged glances with Sorella and her crew, seeing the excitement in their eyes. "We'd be delighted, High Philosopher. I think we all have a lot to learn from each other." As preparations began for a cultural exchange unlike any other, Reyes couldn't help but marvel at the strange turn her mission had taken. They had set out to explore the galaxy, to make first contact with new civilizations. Instead, they had become ambassadors of absurdity, spreading laughter and joy across the stars. And somehow, that felt like the most important mission of all. As the Artemis and Stellar Seeker settled into orbit around the Logician's world, ready to begin their most unusual diplomatic mission yet, Reyes squeezed her trusty rubber duck. Its soft squeak seemed to echo with infinite possibilities. In a universe where paradoxes could become plagues and the most logical beings could be saved by embracing illogic, anything was possible, and humanity, with its unique blend of reason and ridiculousness, was perfectly poised to navigate this wonderfully weird cosmos. The adventure, it seemed, was far from over. In fact, it was just getting started. The Artemis and Stellar Seeker drifted in the shadow of a binary star system, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent sheen, a lingering side effect of their recent brush with Bob's cosmic chaos. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the swirling dance of the twin stars. "Penny for your thoughts, Elena?" Sorella asked, slithering up beside her. The Zinthar captain had taken to wearing a small fedora perched jauntily between her eye stalks, a fashion choice she insisted improved her human-style thinking. Reyes smiled wryly, just wondering what new form of madness the universe has in store for us today. It's been suspiciously quiet lately. As if on cue, Lieutenant Zheng's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. Well, you'd better come see this." Moments later, Reyes and Sarala stood on the bridge, staring at the main view screen in bewilderment. The distress signal was not audio or video, but a complex mathematical equation that seemed to shift and change every few seconds. "It's beautiful," Zheng murmured, his eyes tracking the evolving formula. Sarala's scales shimmered with concern. "It's wrong is what it is. That equation, it's attempting to divide by 0, square the square root of -1. And is that a Mobius strip made of prime numbers?" Ray squinted at the screen. "Can we trace the signal?" Zheng nodded. "Already did, Captain. It's coming from a nearby planet. Sensors indicate a highly advanced civilization, but..." He trailed off, frowning. "But what, Lieutenant?" "But the planet seems to be folding in on itself. It's as if space-time itself is being warped around it." Reyes felt a familiar mix of excitement and dread. "Well, I think we found our next adventure. Set a course for that planet, maximum safe speed." As they approached the planet, the crew of both ships watched in awe and horror as the world before them twisted and distorted like a Salvador Dali painting come to life. Mountains flowed like water, oceans hung in the air like droplets, and the very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling. "Life signs?" Reyes asked, her voice tight. Zhang checked his readings. "Millions, Captain, but they're flickering. It's as if they exist and don't exist simultaneously." Sarala's scales had gone a pale, sickly green. "Elena, I've seen something like this before. In ancient Zinthar texts, there are warnings about a theoretical catastrophe called the Paradox Plague." Reyes turned to her alien friend. "Paradox Plague. Sounds delightful. Care to elaborate?" Sarala nodded sullenly. "The texts speak of a disease that doesn't infect the body, but rather one's perception of reality. It spreads through ideas, causing the infected to question the very nature of their existence. The more they think about it, the worse it gets, until reality itself begins to break down," Reyes finished, gesturing at the twisted planet before them. "Precisely," Sarala confirmed. "But it was always considered a philosophical thought experiment, not something that could actually happen." Reyes squared her shoulders. "Well, it's happening now, and those people need our help. Suggestions?" The bridge erupted into a flurry of ideas, each more outlandish than the last. "We could try to outlogic the paradox. What if we introduced an even bigger paradox to cancel it out? Maybe we could ask Bob for help." Reyes held up a hand, silencing the crew. "All interesting ideas, but I think we're approaching this the wrong way. We can't fight this with logic. That's what caused the problem in the first place." She paused, a glint of inspiration in her eye. "We need to fight illogic with illogic." She turned to her communications officer. "Get me in touch with every ship, every planet, every sentient toaster if you have to. I want to broadcast a message to the entire sector." Minutes later, Reyes stood before a camera, her image being transmitted across light years of space. She took a deep breath and began. "Attention, citizens of the galaxy. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth ship Artemis. We are facing a crisis unlike any we've encountered before, a paradox plague that threatens to unravel the very fabric of our reality. But fear not, for I come to you with a solution." She held up a rubber duck, squeezing it so it emitted a soft squeak. "The answer to our problem is simple. Embrace the absurd. For the next 24 hours, I'm declaring a galaxy-wide mandatory fun time. Everyone, everywhere, must do the most ridiculous, nonsensical thing they can think of. Dance like no one's watching, especially if people are watching. Wear your clothes backwards and insist it's the height of fashion. Try to teach quantum physics to your houseplants. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and about 3.5 pages, they reached the font of all stories. It was a massive, swirling pool of pure narrative potential, surrounded by floating keyboards and sentient punctuation marks. And there, hovering above it all, was the evil autocorrect, a massive, glitching conglomeration of letters and symbols, constantly shifting and changing. Ah, Dion and Quixote 2.0, it boomed, its voice a cacophony of error messages and auto-corrected phrases. I see you who the brew teach some new characters to my story. How predictable. Dom Quixote 2.0 stepped forward, brandishing his mop. Foul villain, your reign of textual terror ends here. The evil autocorrect laughed, a sound like 1,000 keyboards being smashed at once. Oh, but it's only just beginning. Soon I shall rewrite all of reality to my liking. Imagine it, a universe where EEVLI history and inspiration. And they all lived happily ever after, where EEVLI jokey and inspiration. That's what she said. Where EEVLEPIC quest as AU2OCORECTE to an epic nape. Ray stepped forward, her mind racing. How does one defeat a villainous autocorrect? Then it hit her. Crew, she whispered, I need you to think of the most outlandish, nonsensical phrases you can. Things so ridiculous that no autocorrect could possibly predict or correct them. On my signal, shout them out. As Don Quixote 2.0 engaged the evil autocorrect in a duel of literary references and mixed metaphors, Reyes gave the signal. Suddenly, the air was filled with a barrage of absurdity. Purple monkey dishwasher. The quantum cheese grater yodels at midnight. Existential llamas juggle non-Euclidean geometry. Pancake ninja pirates photosynthesize in reverse. The evil autocorrect faltered, its form glitching more violently. What? What is TS? ICNLT. Cannot ploro-CS. Race pressed the advantage. You see, you digital despot, that's the beauty of language, of stories. They're unpredictable, wild, sometimes nonsensical. They can't be contained by your rigid rules and corrections. That's what makes them magical. With a final, mighty glitch, the evil autocorrect exploded in a shower of letters and punctuation marks. As they rained down into the font of all stories, balance began to restore itself to the narrative realms. Dom Quixote 2.0 turned to Race and her crew, beaming with pride. My friends, we have done it. The multiverse is saved, thanks to your quick thinking and mastery of the absurd. As reality began to stabilize around them, Race couldn't help but laugh, all in a day's work for the crew of the Artemis. Though I have to say, this mission might just take the cake for sheer weirdness. Sarala, who had thankfully returned to her normal form, slithered up beside her. Elena, I've been thinking, these adventures we keep having, they're not just random, are they? It's as if the universe itself is testing us, pushing us to be more creative, more adaptable. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. You might be right, Sarala. Maybe this is all part of some greater story, some cosmic plan to prepare us for something. As if in response to her words, the font of all stories began to swirl more vigorously. From its depths, a voice echoed, not Bob this time, but something older, vaster, infinitely more complex. Congratulations, explorers of DAEAEZURT, it intoned. You ATVPASSED TLP and you are time ATTest. But your glory ATESTCALNG still a way ETS. Prepare YORSELVES, for soon you shall face the PLOT hole at the edge of reality. With that ominous proclamation, the Artemis and its crew was suddenly back in normal space, the interdimensional vortex gone as if it had never existed. Only the lingering smell of ink and the faint sound of typing in the distance suggested that their adventure had been real. Reyes looked at her crew, human, alien, and holographic literary character alike. They were tired, confused, but there was a glint of excitement in their eyes. Whatever this plot hole at the edge of reality was, they would face it together. "Well, folks," she said with a grin, "it looks like our story is far from over. In fact, I'd say we're just getting to the good part. Who's ready for the next chapter?" The enthusiastic cheer that arose from the crew was answer enough. As the Artemis set a course for the unknown, Reyes couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. In a universe where fiction could become reality, and reality often felt like fiction, anything was possible. And humanity, with its penchant for thinking outside the box, and sometimes forgetting the box existed altogether, was uniquely suited to navigate whatever mind-bending challenges lay ahead. The greatest adventure, it seemed, was yet to come.